They say trust takes time to build, but it can fall apart in the blink of an eye. I had no idea that New Year's Eve would be the night everything would change for me. I didn't realize that night would mark the beginning of the end for my marriage. Everything Jenny and I had worked on together started crumbling before my eyes. If I'm being real, though, I should have seen it coming. The cracks had been there for a while, little things we both chose to ignore. That night, while we were getting ready for the company's New Year's party, I watched her in the mirror. She looked absolutely stunning in a red dress I hadn't seen her wear before. It fit her perfectly, showing off her figure in all the right ways. There was a glow about her, a sparkle in her eyes that, deep down, I knew wasn't for me. I admired her, but it felt like she was a million miles away. She seemed lost in her own thoughts, brushing her hair with extra care, putting on makeup like it was some kind of art. I told her how beautiful she looked, and she smiled, but it wasn't the smile I knew. Something had shifted in her that night. I could feel it in my gut, but instead of bringing it up, I shoved the feeling down. I didn't want to mess up the evening by letting my worries take over. I told myself she was just in the holiday spirit, excited to see her friends and coworkers. But deep down, I knew something between us was shifting, and I was too blind, or maybe just too scared, to face it. As we drove to the party, the conversation was light, but it felt empty. We talked about her job, the people we'd see at the party, the usual small talk, but none of it meant much. It felt like we were avoiding the real conversations, the ones we hadn't had in months. Little did I know that by the end of that night, I'd be staring down a situation I wasn't ready to handle. I didn't understand how fragile trust really was, or how you can lose someone even when they're sitting right next to you. When we got to the party, the place was buzzing with music, laughter, and bright lights. It was one of those fancy events where everyone dressed to impress, and everything looked perfect on the outside. Jenny got swept up in the crowd right away, smiling and chatting with her coworkers like she was in her element. I kind of hung back, feeling like a stranger in her world. This wasn't my first time at one of these parties, but something about this one felt different. I tried to blend in, made small talk here and there, but my eyes kept wandering back to Jenny. She was glowing, more alive than I had seen her in months. I should have been happy for her, maybe even proud, but instead, I felt disconnected. It wasn't just that she was chatting with her coworkers, it was how easy she made it look, like I wasn't even there. Every time she caught my eye, she'd flash a quick smile before going back to whoever she was talking to. And then, there was Rob. He stayed close to her most of the night. I had heard her mention him before, just in passing, nothing that set off any alarms. He was a manager from another department, someone she worked with on a big project. But tonight, the way they acted around each other was different. I noticed how her laugh seemed a little louder when he was around, how they shared these looks that I couldn't quite read. I wanted to brush it off, tell myself it was nothing. After all, they were just coworkers, right? But the way they seemed to gravitate toward each other made my stomach turn. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was just being paranoid. Maybe it was the holiday spirit making her act more carefree, more relaxed. But as the night went on, I started to feel like an outsider in my own marriage. Jenny was everywhere, talking, laughing, dancing, but not with me. I felt like I was slowly fading into the background, just watching her from a distance, unsure of where I fit into her life anymore. It wasn't that I didn't trust her, I thought I did, but the way she lit up around Rob made me question everything. I took a deep breath and told myself it was nothing. It was just a holiday party, just some drinks and laughter. But deep down, something inside me was shifting. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it felt like the foundation of everything we had was starting to crack, and I didn't know how to stop it. As the night went on, I kept watching Jenny, my unease growing with each passing minute. She kept bouncing from conversation to conversation, laughing at every joke, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every time I tried to get closer to her, she seemed distracted, her attention always floating back to the crowd, especially to Rob. I stood by the bar, sipping my drink, trying to convince myself it was all in my head. But it wasn't. There was something about the way they were around each other that felt too close, too comfortable. Rob wasn't just some other coworker. There was this quiet energy between them, something unspoken but impossible to miss. I caught them exchanging glances more than once, those looks that lingered just a little too long, smiles that held more than just friendliness. At one point, I saw Rob hand her a drink. It wasn't the gesture itself that hit me. It was how their hands brushed, and the way her smile softened when she looked at him. It felt like I wasn't even there, like I had become invisible in my own marriage. That sinking feeling in my gut just kept getting worse, and I couldn't shake it off any longer. Then came the moment that flipped my world upside down. It was late by then, and most people were either dancing or too drunk to care about much. I had lost track of Jenny for a bit, and decided to step outside for some air, hoping it'd clear my head. As I walked onto the balcony, the cold night air hit me like a slap to the face, waking me up to the reality I didn't want to face. That's when I saw them, Jenny and Rob, tucked away in the corner, far from the noise and crowd. They were talking quietly, their bodies turned toward each other in a way that felt far too intimate. I froze. My heart pounded so hard, I thought it might burst. I wanted to turn away, pretend I hadn't seen anything, but I couldn't. It was like I was watching my worst nightmare unfold right in front of me, powerless to stop it. Rob leaned in, whispering something in her ear, and she smiled. Not just any smile, this soft, warm smile I hadn't seen in months. My chest tightened when I saw her place her hand gently on his arm, and it wasn't the kind of touch you give to a friend. And then it happened. He leaned in closer, and she didn't back away. I stood there, frozen, as he kissed her. This wasn't some drunk accident, and it wasn't a quick mistake. It was deliberate. She kissed him back, slow and familiar, like this wasn't the first time, like it was something they had done before. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about Jenny, just shattered. I felt numb, like the ground had been ripped out from under me, and I was free falling into a reality I didn't want to face. I don't even remember how long I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching them. Time felt like it slowed down, every second dragging on as my mind tried to make sense of what I had just seen. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, drowning out the music and laughter coming from the party behind me. Then, something snapped inside me. The shock gave way to anger, and before I even realized it, my feet were moving. I walked toward them, fists clenched, and the cold air did nothing to cool the rage boiling inside me. I shoved the door to the balcony open, the sound cutting through their quiet moment like a knife. Jenny and Rob jumped apart, startled. Rob immediately took a step back, his face pale, guilt written all over him. He didn't say a word. I guess he knew there was nothing he could say that would make this better. But Jenny just stared at me, her eyes wide with shock and fear. For a moment she looked like a stranger to me, like the woman standing there wasn't the same person I'd spent the last 7 years with, the same woman I had trusted with everything. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of hurt and anger. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe the woman I loved had just kissed another man, right in front of me, like I didn't even exist. "It's not what you think," she blurted out, her voice trembling. It was such a cliché, so predictable, so empty. I could see her struggling to find the right words, trying to make this go away, but there was no fixing it. Not after what I had just seen. "Don't," I cut her off, my voice low and sharp. "I saw everything, Jenny. Don't lie to me." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not now, not after that kiss. "It was a mistake," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear. It didn't mean anything." Didn't mean anything? How could she say that? How could she reduce something so intimate, so loaded with unspoken meaning, to nothing? My chest tightened, a storm of rage and sorrow brewing inside me, tearing me apart. "You don't kiss someone like that if it doesn't mean anything," I shot back, my voice trembling. "How long, Jenny? How long has this been going on?" Her face crumpled as the tears spilled down her cheeks. but I couldn't tell if they were tears of guilt, or just because she got caught. She shook her head, reaching out for me, but I took a step back. I couldn't let her touch me, not after this. It hasn't been going on, she sobbed. I swear, it was just tonight. I was drunk, it was a mistake. Please, you have to believe me. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Everything I thought I knew about us, about her, felt like it had been a lie. The trust that was once the foundation of our marriage had been shattered, and all I could feel was the raw pain of betrayal. I stood there, staring at her, feeling like the ground had been yanked out from under me. Everything I had built with Jenny, our life, our marriage, our future, it all suddenly felt fragile, like it could crumble at any second. Her words echoed in my mind. It didn't mean anything. But that kiss, it meant something. I saw it, I felt it. And even if she wanted to call it a mistake, even if she swore it was just a one-time thing, the damage was already done. You were drunk? I asked bitterly. Is that supposed to make it okay? Because you had a few drinks, I'm just supposed to forgive this? The hurt in my voice was too strong to hide, and honestly, I didn't even want to hide it. She needed to know how deep the cut went. Jenny shook her head, her tears falling freely now. No, no, of course not, she cried. I don't expect you to forgive me just like that. Her voice cracked, and she wiped her face with shaky hands. I don't know why I did it. It was stupid. I love you. I don't want to lose you. Hearing her say she loved me felt like rubbing salt in the wound. How could she say she loved me, then turn around and kiss another man? How could she claim our marriage mattered and then throw it all away like this? You don't get to say you love me after this, I said, my voice trembling with anger. You don't get to kiss someone else and then come back like it's nothing. Her face twisted in pain, and she stepped toward me, but I backed away. I couldn't let her near me. Not now, not with everything so raw, so broken. Please, let's just go home, she begged. We can talk about this, we can figure it out. It was a mistake, I swear. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. But could she? Could anything she said or did make this right? I didn't know. All I knew was that I was drowning in betrayal, and I didn't know how to find the surface again. Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to hang on to the idea that this was just a terrible mistake, a moment of weakness that we could move past. But another part of me, the part that had seen her kiss him, the part that had felt the sting of that betrayal, wasn't sure if I could ever look at her the same way again. I don't know, Jenny, I said quietly, my voice hollow. I don't know if we can come back from this. Her tears fell harder at my words, and she reached for me one last time, but I couldn't let her touch me. Not now, maybe not ever. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, crying softly in the cold night air. I left the party feeling like I was walking through a fog, my mind spinning from everything that had happened. The city lights blurred as I walked down the street, the cold air biting at my skin, but I barely noticed. I just needed to get away, from the noise, from the party, from Jenny. The truth is, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go from here. Could I ever forgive her? Could I ever trust her again? The image of her kissing Rob kept flashing in my mind, like a wound that refused to heal. But it wasn't just the kiss, it was what it represented. The distance that had been growing between us for months, the signs I had ignored, the slow unraveling of our relationship while I wasn't paying attention. By the time I got home, the house felt emptier than it ever had before. I sat down on the couch, staring at nothing, the silence pressing in on me. Memories of our life together flooded my mind, the good times, the moments of laughter, the promises we had made to each other. But now, those memories felt tainted, like they belonged to someone else's life. I thought about everything Jenny had said. She was sorry. It was a mistake. She didn't want to lose me. But how could I believe her? How could I trust her after what I had seen? And even if it was just a moment of weakness, how could we ever move past it? The trust between us had been shattered, and without trust, what did we even have left? Hours passed, and eventually, I heard the front door open. Jenny had come home. She walked in quietly, her face red and streaked with tears. She looked like she'd been through hell, but so had I. We didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, staring at me with those same tearful eyes, waiting for me to speak, waiting for me to tell her what came next. But I didn't have any answers. "I don't know what to do," I finally said, breaking the heavy silence. "I don't know if I can forgive this." Jenny nodded, her lip trembling. "I understand," she whispered, "but I love you. I want to fix this. I'll do whatever it takes." Her words hung between us, but they didn't bring the comfort they used to. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that we could get through this, that we could rebuild what had been broken. But the truth was, I didn't know if I had it in me. "I need time," I said quietly. "I can't figure this out right now." She nodded again, wiping her eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll wait." And just like that, the conversation ended, leaving us in this uneasy limbo, neither of us sure what the future held. I slept on the couch that night, staring up at the ceiling, replaying the night's events over and over in my head. I didn't know if we'd ever get through this. I didn't know if I could truly forgive her, or if I even wanted to. The only thing I knew for sure was that things would never go back to the way they were. We were standing at a crossroads, and no matter what path I chose, the life we had before was gone. What would you do in a situation like this? Is forgiveness possible after such a betrayal? Or is it better to cut your losses and move on? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one.